So I'm going to get started because there's a really large agenda for us today, and I want to make sure we have time to listen to this awesome panel. Thank you all for being here. My name is Cayman Somerville. I'm the Recruitment and Wet Lab Project Manager for Greentown Labs. If you haven't heard, we are in the middle of a huge project. It's our Global Center for Cleantech Innovation. There's going to be a 2,000 square foot wet lab dedicated for companies that are doing work in advanced materials, green chemistry, and water tech innovation. So that's why we're here tonight, to focus on water tech. So I have some really awesome panelists up here. I'm really excited for you guys to hear from them and learn about kind of what they're doing. For the sake of time, I'm going to introduce them really briefly and then just kind of really jump in there. And if we have time at the end, we'll open it up to the audience and you guys can all ask your questions, which I'm sure there are plenty out there. So just to kind of give you a disclaimer, I just flew in from London yesterday, so if I mess up my words, I'm a little jet lagged. And also, we are actually missing a panelist. Michael Sullivan unfortunately missed his flight. So, Rob, you are the voice of the corporate, no pressure. And then also, Monica Weber is unfortunately sick, so she sent in her place Helen Markowicz. And so everybody really give it up for her because she only knew about this 2 hours ago. So we'll start. So Dr. Helen, she's the lead scientist and the head of the water program for FluidScreen. FluidScreen has developed a breakthrough technology that enables early detection of bacteria in fluid samples and identification system that provides rapid results for a wide array of applications, such as municipal water quality verification and assurance. To the left of her, we have Rob Ellison. He's the CTO of Xylem Analytics. Xylem Analytics is a leading provider of premium field, portable, online, and laboratory analytical instrumentation serving water and wastewater markets, as well as many others. And then to the left of him, we have Dr. Matthew Silver. He's the founder and CEO of Greentown Innovation. Cambrian is a commercial provider of distributed wastewater treatment and resource recovery solutions dedicated to solving critical water, wastewater, and energy management challenges for industrial producers. And last, we have Michael Murphy. He's the Director of Water Innovation at the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center. MassCC is a quasi-public agency dedicated to accelerating the success of both clean energy and water technologies, companies, and projects in the Commonwealth. So I'm up here, I have the Water Technology Industry Roadmap, so I'm channeling that for this whole kind of presentation. So we're going to actually jump in to talk with Michael, asking him a bit of information about this ecosystem that's so rich here in the greater Boston area. So Michael, could you please just share some information about this water and energy ecosystem as a whole and provide some insight as to how Massachusetts views and supports innovation?
Certainly. Yeah, definitely. Okay. Well, first of all, welcome everyone. Hope you made it through the traffic. And thanks to Greentown Labs for having us. I'm really honored to be on this panel with my colleagues. So, show of hands, who's in the water innovation business in any way, shape, or form out there? Just a quick show of hands. Okay. Certainly the panel. So, a little about the ecosystem, and then a little about how MassCC, how the state views the water innovation sector, and then how we're supporting it. So number one, the ecosystem. The ecosystem in Massachusetts and the region, as we know, is quite strong. We have all of this this fantastic portfolio of assets and resources from which a technology cluster can draw upon. Just look at Cleantech, look at where we're at, look at biotech, and look at life sciences. All of those same forces are at play for water innovation. We have the stakeholders, we have the universities, we have places like Greentown and other incubators and accelerators. We have a public sector that supports this. We have investors, we have professional associations. It's really all there. I think the one major distinction in the water innovation space really is that value of water that we have, the perception of water. And so the water industry, water innovation sector, I think is lagging behind other technology sectors, even though we have these resources here that which we can build a very potentially global hub of water innovation. So it's really all here, and arguably more here than anywhere else. So that's a little about the ecosystem. It's very encouraging in that regard. A little about how we view the sector. Mass CEC, where I work, as Cayman said, is a quasi-governmental agency. So, we're working on water, but what we really do primarily is energy. We see water as a potential opportunity. There's massive upside. We also look at it as a conservative sector that moves slow and accelerates slow and adopts technologies slow. And so we see that as opportunity. What are we doing? Well, there's a range of things that Mass CEC does and the Commonwealth does. Just for starters, Mass CEC has a suite of programs, grant programs, that can help a technology startup in the water business move up the path of commercialization. So starting at R&D all the way up to a larger demonstration, we have a suite of programming. We're supporting a mobile technology testing lab for water technologies that will be operated by UMass Amherst with a $100,000 grant. We have a very robust internship program. So we match prospective interns with employers, and we subsidize a portion of that cost. We sponsor water innovation events, partner with universities and other organizations. Quite a few things that we're doing. We also working on some feasibility studies right now that will take a look at is taking a look at three sites in the Commonwealth where demonstrations could potentially happen. So if you're a water technology provider and you need to test out at some scale, in the future, the vision is you will be able to go to one of these sites and plug in, and you won't have to buy all the resources, shared resources. They'll be operated either by a university or a utility. So right now we're in a feasibility stage. We also have a program where we're looking to incentivize the municipal wastewater treatment sector in piloting and ideally adopting cutting-edge technologies. So that is a grant program that we have right now. We've also been involved, more so in the past than currently, but involved in the national conversation around water innovation and the growth of water innovation hubs and how they can work together, collaborate, and share best practices. And then I'll end with the Northeast Water Innovation Network, formerly the New England Water Innovation Network. So Mass CEC is a co-founder of this organization, which was conceived in 2011. Was actually formed in January of 2014 as an organization, and this is a member-based group that is basically the private sector voice of the water industry in this region, with about 300 members, projects from Maine to New Jersey, mostly curated and executed in Boston and New York, but really reaching that entire region. And I saw Marcus Gay here somewhere. Marcus, can you raise? So back here is Marcus Gay. He's the executive director of the Northeast Water Innovation Network. If you're interested in anything that they're doing, please go talk to him. They have put together a fantastic week of events. Next week, the Massachusetts Water Week. So that's massachusettswaterweek.org. You can talk to him. You can go to that website and learn about all these events next week. Mass CEC has supported that group in various ways through the years, through grants, sponsorships, and some in-kind as well. So that's just another way that the Commonwealth is looking to collaborate and support the Water Innovation Network. So that's a long rundown of things that we're doing. We've also integrated water innovation into our other programming at Mass CEC so we can use the vehicles that we already had in place, and we're not reinventing the wheel with some of our programs. And then we also have the pure play water programs.
Thanks. And I know that both Helen and Matthew can really speak to how they benefit from Mass CEC's programs, but for the sake of time, I'm just going to let Helen speak very briefly about kind of how Fluid Screen has benefited or been supported by Mass CEC.
Absolutely. So the Mass CEC grant program allowed Fluid Screen to really move its technology from the academic lab where it was first developed into a space and into laboratory lab incubator space where we could really start to develop it and test it with more and more organisms than it had been tested with in the academic space. It also connected us with a number of partners in the water sector that were interested in adopting innovations, including Riverkeeper, which is an activist organization for the Hudson River, but involves a lot of environmental and science and microbiology faculty of various New York City area universities. And then also to build on what Michael said, FluidScreen has also benefited from the Northeast Water Innovation Network as well. We've been to a number of their pitch nights and showcases at the New England Water and Environment Association meeting, and those have allowed us to get a lot of contacts in the industry that we wouldn't have gotten otherwise. Since, as has been mentioned, water gets a little bit obscured in the sort of clean tech innovation, and a lot of the more established water companies aren't as aware of the innovative companies and innovations coming out of research labs and just people's brains as well.
So, awesome, thanks. So that just that will help with the sound that's going on between two. So many early stage water tech startups face two large challenges: funding and finding the appropriate workspace for them, finding a lab that's not in an academic setting or in a biotech space. So that's what Greentown is trying to address with this wet lab that they're building. But I think that it would be really beneficial for the audience to hear from both Matthew and Helen. Helen coming from FluidScreen, which is a bit of an earlier stage, but later stage in terms of they are moving out of the lab soon. And Matthew can talk about kind of market hurdles that his company faces. So what are some of the challenges that your startup or your company has faced as an early stage company in the water tech space, and how did you overcome them? And we can start with you, Matthew.
Great. Thanks very much. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. And thanks all of you for being here. Just very briefly, so what Cambria is doing is we're basically focused on converting industrial wastewater into clean energy and clean water as a service. And we're doing that with the benefit of a novel anaerobic treatment technology where we're able to generate high-quality biogas, convert that into energy, electricity, and heat. And then we've also put together a broader product suite, including a membrane bioreactor and some integrated controls and sensors. So we have essentially built a modular treatment plant. So that's one part of what we can do for companies is take their wastewater and essentially convert it into clean water and clean energy. Another part of what we're doing, and part of getting that into the market, has been putting together a project finance vehicle. So we realized as we were building up this product suite, we started with kind of an innovation, we turned it into a broader product, and then we realized that to get into the market, we were facing a number of hurdles. As you mentioned, this is one of the interesting things I think about the space is that the Japanese definition of optimism is having enough problems to keep you interested. That's certainly true with commercializing technologies in this sector. Because you start off with a technical hurdle, and then you got to face other hurdles in the market. You've got a conservative market, you've got customers that are often looking to minimize downside risk rather than look at a benefit. And you've got sort of decision making, at least in the corporate sector, but probably even more so in the municipal sector, that's based on, again, usually avoiding risk, right? So how do you innovate in a sector that's based on avoiding risk? And I'd argue that that's more difficult in water than it is in energy, and there's a number of reasons for that. Right? One of them is that you've got a lot more utilities, you've got smaller entities, you've got more local decision making, and then oftentimes the product life cycles are a little bit longer. You have less of a consumer sort of input to that, meaning you can have consumers draw in solar. It's part of the reason we ended up focusing on industry to start. But what we decided to do is essentially convert this to a service, our product into a service, because that was a way for us to eliminate a whole host of challenges associated with market adoption. So what that means is we put together a small fund, about $30 million, and we draw down from that fund on behalf of our customers, and we build out a plan in advance, and then we basically sell them a service of $1 per gallon or $1 per kilowatt hour return. And so to answer your question, I think these are the different things that you have to think to overcome when you get to the market stage in terms of innovation. You've got to think about the conservativeness of the market, the fact that it's fairly heterogeneous, and the fact that the adoption cycle is going to be case, that really helped because we were able to go to customers and say, we've got a new plant, a new kind of technology. We can treat your water at lower cost. And if you're skeptical, we'll do it at our risk. And what we ended up seeing is that quite often customers would say, some would say, okay, we're interested, we want you to do this via finance model. And others would say, actually, if you're willing to take the risk on that and pay for it, you have investors that are making money off of that, I'm just going to buy it for capital. So it was a way of accelerating the deployment cycle, accelerating the sales conversation. So currently we've got 4 plants in the ground. We've got 6 more that are in construction. We're going to be doing about $10 million in revenue this year, and then we've got a backlog that's coming up on about $30 million in terms of projects that we're delivering on. And a big part of that has been not just on the technical innovation part, but it's been figuring out the financing and sort of the sales process as you get into the market. So that's what I encourage people to think about clearly at the start.
Thanks.
And then from the fluid screen perspective, which is from a much smaller company, everything you said is completely relevant to us as well. But to build on that, 2 things in the water sector. The first would be the regulatory environment for water treatment. We found the water industry is risk averse, but it's also very focused on what do the regulations say, what are the approved methods, and so really being prepared with the argument and the reasons why using an innovative method, a new method, actually can work in your favor, even if it's hasn't gone through the sometimes many years long regulatory approval process. And so that's been that was a challenge, but we've also been able to overcome it by knowing our stuff and being informed on the regulatory environment for new innovative methods, and also making important contacts with the EPA and other regulatory bodies at the state and local level. I will say we've found some of the people that are most interested in innovative water technologies to be the CSO and stormwater groups. They seem to be the most ready to adopt them. The second thing I was going to mention is a challenge that we were facing was worrying about having customers ready for the initial technology, what we imagined the initial sort of version that we would sell would be, and worry that we wouldn't get it out in time before the company ran out of money. And what we found is by being open to really listening to what the customers wanted, what they actually wanted to use the technology for, we found we were able to we found that they were actually interested in using much earlier prototypes or slight modifications of earlier prototypes that could let us get a sellable and marketable device much earlier than we had projected for the final product that was the initial vision of the company. So one thing that I would encourage other companies to do is to be very open-minded about what your customer wants. Your original vision or the picture in your mind of what the final product is going to look like may not be the first product you sell. You may find that customers are much interested in an earlier stage, and that you're able to sell it and make money to fund that final vision.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great. So keeping in mind these challenges, and I'm probably thinking outside of the box, I'd like to turn over to Rob to talk about the corporate side. So how does your company view collaboration with startups as a part of your innovation strategy? I know you have examples you can speak to, and maybe even you can kind of elaborate on how this type of relationship can help address these types of challenges.
Sure. Okay, there we go. Hello, everyone, and thanks, Cayman, and for inviting me, and everyone for attending. So just quickly, a little bit on Xylem. I work for Xylem, which is a large global water technology company. We're about $4.5 billion and very much globally spread globally. And when we say water technology, we really break it down into 3 main areas: the transport of water, which is mostly pumps, circulators, mixers, the treatment of water, and that's disinfection systems as well as biological treatment systems, and then the sensing of water. We break down sensing into water quality and water quantity. And so that's the area that I work in specifically, but I do interact with all of the different business units. So to your question, Cayman, yes, interfacing with startups is really a huge part of our innovation strategy. and it's really stepped up over the last 3 or 4 years. Xylem is actually a relatively new company. We spun out of ITT, which was a huge conglomerate about 6 years ago. And so they took all the water-related parts of ITT and spun them off into Xylem. And then ever since then, we've been trying to figure out, all right, how do we put these pieces together? The exciting part of Xylem is that we have the broadest portfolio of these water-related products in the world. So we've got all these tools in our toolkit, and the trick is to figure out how to put them together to generate more value and solve real-world problems. And so 2.5 years ago or so, we started an advanced technology team, and this was critical. This team works above all of the different business units, and they are 100% committed and tasked to bring disruptive technology to Xylem, and that's through external partnerships mainly. And so the types of external partnerships are typically with academic institutions. We have a really exciting industrial partnership with MIT right now, as well as with Stanford. And then through accessing startups. And so we do that a few different ways. One is just through networking and these types of events, and people like myself can bring interesting opportunities and new companies, put it on the radar. But also we invest in partnering with a VC fund in Silicon Valley that is focused on clean energy and water. And that gives us access to all of the companies that they're looking at. It's about 1,000 companies a year. It gives us partnership opportunities with them, investment opportunities with them, and we can also bring companies to them. And the benefit of that is that it will put those companies that we're interested in through their due diligence process, and has a very professional way of screening those companies and seeing if there's a good fit. So, yes, interfacing with startups is absolutely critical to us. And I just wanted to say, following on what Michael said, is that we're based out of White Plains, New York. I work out of Boston, but we have just within the analytics business, we have 16 different sites spread across U.S. and Europe. And so we're all over the place, and we found that Boston is definitely the hub of choice for us for accessing new technology and academic partnerships. And I'm really excited about Greentown's lab expansion and the wet lab. I think it's going to be great.
Great, thanks. So I want to open it up to the rest of the panel, and you can answer this from the perspective of your own organization. Rob, you've already touched upon it, but you're more than welcome to jump in again. Why are startup and corporate partnerships valuable in the water tech space, and kind of what is that? How is that meaningful to your organization? And whoever wants to start can start.
I'll just make a couple of really quick points. I think one of the things about water is that there's a ton of knowledge that's needed to commercialize technologies in this space. So I would say even more so than something like energy, you've got a heterogeneity to the customer base, and you've got to know a whole host of things. If you're treating water, if you're generating clean water, you got to know about the constituents of the water, you got to know about the different processes. You have to know where you might fit, and you also have to know, probably as importantly, where are the challenges? Where is there actually a market for certain kinds of these solutions? And so from our perspective, at least early on, one of the really important aspects of corporate partnerships was just getting information from companies that had challenges or that had knowledge that they could help us with, because we had this interesting technology, but we really weren't sure where it could best be applied or what else we needed to do to apply it. So that's a critical part, I think, of commercializing things. I think as you get down the road, one of the things for us that's interesting is the ability to accelerate sales. Right? So corporate partnerships bring a certain amount of cachet and sort of marketing benefit. So that's something that they can really help on the sales side. But I'd say those are the two levels, early on and then later on sales.
Yeah, I'll just follow up with that. I agree. I would break it down into those two groups as well. On the early stage work, a business like the one I work for has hundreds of years of collective experience in developing sensors and instruments to measure things in water. And it is a very conservative market, and there are a lot of very few technologies that operate well on the bench are going to actually work in the field, if that's what you're looking to do. And so we have a lot of experience. We can help companies accelerate the testing, similar to what the Mass CEC UMass partnership is trying to do, and similar to Greentown. We also have a lot of facilities around the world to help quickly evaluate and test feasibility of new technologies, and that's incredibly valuable because otherwise it could take years. Also, as far as if it's a regulatory market, planning for that, networking within the EPA and other groups to figure out how to do that as quickly as possible. From the startup's perspective, I think the value of a corporate partnership is also around once you have something that's ready for market, the brand recognition, because as everyone has said, the industry is incredibly risk averse and conservative, and so having a reliable brand to stand behind your technology is incredibly important, and as well as sales channels to market. So I'd say those are the main values.
Just add a little bit of follow-up. I mean, I agree with all of that, and be interested to hear from your perspective, Rob. One of the things that we see at Mass CEC all the time are really exciting young companies with fascinating technologies. I think one of the ways that the strategic partnership really can benefit the startup is to really get a good sense of the market from the strategic, because you guys really do understand that global market, understand the real pain points and what the challenges are, and can help mentor and direct a startup who perhaps really have the technical chops and new ideas, but maybe haven't done that market research enough. And I think that's a big benefit to the startup and, of course, to the strategic in bringing new technologies to the fold.
The only thing I would add is that corporate partnerships for startups with corporations that have strong innovation groups is that the people in the innovation group will point you to the first part of their business where they would like to use their technology, and then they'll say, "Oh, you'd be also a great fit down the hall," and they'll go find someone and bring you in, and next thing you know, you have another potential customer in another group within the same large corporation, and it can be extremely beneficial. That way, you can double, triple your customer base just by making one connection, one partnership with a corporation.
So, do you guys have any tips for the audience for either early stage companies that are trying to commercialize their product, or I guess startups in the audience who are going to need to be pursuing these types of relationships or partnerships with these strategics? How do you suggest they go about that?
I'll start. This is on. So, well, come to these things. This is a good thing to do. Be at Greentown Labs. There's always strategics here. There's always startups here. But I'd also say we've touched on it a little bit. Really understand your market. Spend the majority of your time on the market and what your strategic partners are telling you and what they need, and then come back to your solutions. Because your solutions, can be fantastic, but if there's no market for them, if they're not really addressing a problem, you're just not going to get there. I'd also say in the water business, be very patient, be very persistent and open to feedback, and be ready to pivot. Helen said it. You're going to start in one place, you might end up somewhere else. And don't confuse your passion with emotion or for emotion. Maybe check your emotion at the door, keep your passion with you, so you can make sound decisions along the way. Those are just a few tips.
Sorry, real quick. Michael took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say to make sure you spend at least as much time on the market research and the go-to-market strategy as you do on the technology. Most of the startups that we interface with have exciting technologies, but they're much weaker on the commercialization strategy. Another thing is, especially on the regulatory side, there's often niches that are not regulatory driven, maybe similar to the CSO example that you brought up. That might be a good entry point for your technology, and that can allow you to start working towards the getting over those regulatory hurdles over time.
I was going to say something similar, but then it's going to seem like there's only one way to do this. But it's really, the market side thing is really true. And just by way of example, we started. We ended up doing and kind of building on what was said earlier about sort of understanding the value of your technology that might change and being open to that. We did a demonstration project at Clos du Bois Winery in California, and we operated it for about 15 months. And at the time, we were really focused on our novel anaerobic treatment process, which was based on what's called electromethanogenesis. It's a novel bioelectrochemical system. And we were looking at the fact that we could generate higher quality gas and we could accelerate treatment rates versus other fixed film reactors. Okay, so that's what we were really interested in when we deployed it. We operated for 15 months, and the director of operations at the winery looked at the data, and we said, see, the treatment rates are working well. I said, that's good. And he said, the gas quality's high. And he's like, okay, that's interesting. And he said, so you're telling me this made it through crush season when we gave it a huge load of wastewater, and then we dropped the load, and then it raised, and then it dropped. And we said, yeah, it worked along that whole line. He said, that's way more interesting than any of these other things. And that was like 6 years into developing this thing. So at that point in time, we said, okay, the interesting part of this technology is the fact that it's robust, that it just treats. And we looked into what was creating that robustness. Why was it more robust than other anaerobic treatment technologies? And we really dove into that. And so I think being open to shifting how you think of the value proposition as you're learning more about the market is an important facet, particularly given the complexity of these markets and what you're trying to do. The other part is be interested in learning, because that's really what you're going to get out of this as much as anything else, at least from my perspective. It's been a while we're doing this, but every time there's a new challenge. It's technology, then it's market, then it's project finance. So you're going to get, if anything, an education out of it. Don't be in it for, it's not going to be Google. You're not going to have a lot of water unicorns out there in the next couple of years. Maybe there's a couple out there. Last point is just pick a market that's kind of interesting if you can. So we had a choice at one point between, we were looking at food and beverage, and we had a choice between like a plant in the Midwest that was doing like pet food manufacturing and a winery in Sonoma County. And sort of thought about where we'd end up spending most of our time over the next couple of years. And now we're selling into beer and wine and a lot more about craft beer than before. So you actually spend a lot of time in that. So it kind of matters. So that's my other bit of advice.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just one more point. I mentioned the Northeast Water Innovation Network. I think that's another way. If you're looking to accelerate your technology, really reach out to the group. Go talk to Marcus. I mean, this is part of what they do. Part of my role at MassCC is as a board member of Newen. We always get companies asking us how they can participate. Who should they know? And that's always part of our answer. So I would recommend looking to see how the Northeast Water Innovation Network can help you in your business and help you get your technology closer to market.
Just to add to what you're saying, I wanted to emphasize the importance of networking as part of your market research. You talk to people at networking events and you find the most unexpected market needs or pain points that you, even if you had done your research, you weren't aware of. And as you're saying, the Newen events are great for that. Every Newen event I go to, I come back with a stack of notes, and I've made so many professional contacts and contacts for the company with that. So.
Great. Well, thank you all so much for coming. This is fabulous, and we're really all lucky to have you here. And I just want to close out by letting everybody know that the Wet Lab and the Global Center is scheduled to be open November 1st. We're all actively talking to partners and startups about how to get involved or how to join. If you would like to learn more, please come find me. There's a table back there that's full of information and marketing material about both of these projects that are going on. And now I think that everybody should grab a beer, come back in 15 minutes. There's going to be an awesome agenda by Mark Basu, our Executive Vice President. We're so excited to have you all here. So